Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to round number 3 of coverage from the preliminary Pro Tour qualifier here from Darksphere in London. John Partridge, Tom Law in the commentary booth for round number 3 of action. Two players are already sat down. Yuri versus Pete Ward. Bant tokens, Green-Red Landfall. Green-Red Landfall seems to be really popular today. Everyone seems to be playing it.
Yeah, that's kind of odd actually, because well, in the last couple of weeks, it hasn't really been putting up many results. Mostly because Jeskai Black's been so like consistent and popular.
And we saw that last round.
Yeah.
The Jeskai Black deck just able to just overtake the game eventually.
Yeah, the overall card quality in Jeskai Black is just a bit too much for the Ataka Red players to overcome in general.
Okay. So we're gonna shortcut this slightly. We're gonna send it straight down to the feature match area. Shay Holland's on our button mashing today, so hopefully he doesn't mess up, and we shall see where it goes from there. So. Yuri on your right,
yep.
Pete on your left. What do you normally see from this matchup? I'm assuming you've probably played more standard than I have of this caliber. I normally just play Death Misraptors and Den Protectors and call it a day after that.
I've actually played the Bant Tokens deck a little bit because it was one of the breakout decks from the Pro Tour, because Sam Black, being Sam Black, likes to innovate, and it was one of the top performing standard decks in the standard portion. And I don't know what innovations have come up since then, but it basically it wants to play creatures like Elfish Visionary, Hangerback Walkers on turn 2, and then Nissa, and then into like a retreat to Emiria or Gideon. The idea is, with cards like Visionary and Nissa, is that you can cast a creature and then you refill your hand so that you can still make your land drops. This is key to the strategy of the deck, because what Sam Black found in the testing was that he could make creatures and then play a retreat, and then he wouldn't have anything to trigger the retreat with, because obviously you're playing cards from your hand that's not refilling your hand. And then on the other side you've got Yuri, who's playing basically creatures and then pumping them and then double striking them and then killing you. It's quite straightforward, and we've seen it 3 times already today. And
differing results so far.
Yeah, it's 1-1. No, it's
0-2. It's not had a good day so far, but obviously
we
were speaking about Elvish Visionary and Retreat to Emiria, the two, probably I'd say, signature cards of the deck that don't really appear in anything else currently. Elvish Visionary, 1 and a green, 1/1, draws a card that enters the battlefield. Retreat to Emiria, landfall, put a 1/1 white core ally, and it is an ally, so in limited you have the nice synergies.
Yep.
And creatures you control, and it's creatures you control, not just one, the whole
all
team.
of them, yeah.
+1/+1.
It's actually surprising how good that card is in constructed. So part of the reason why the Bant Tokens deck did so well at the Pro Tour was because it's actually really good against Jeskai Black. As you saw in the last round, Jeskai Black just tries to grind you out slowly with 2-for-1s with the commands and Jace. And when you're trying to do that against a deck that plays a land and gets a creature, it becomes really difficult, because every card, and then even the creatures they draw replace themselves. So you're basically trying to 2-for-1 a deck that 2-for-1s you to start with. So you're just ending up balanced, and overall the card quality is still there. And as an enchantment retreat, it's really difficult for the Jeskai players to deal with.
And it's one of the things we've noticed. If you're outside of green and white, enchantments are, well, sometimes obviously the black-white decks have that around, but it's really hard to get enchantments off the table for not a lot of mana.
Yeah, so like in a Jeskai Black deck, your options are basically just Utter End, and after board you have things like Feladar's Cub and Erase. But game 1 is a struggle for the Jeskai decks.
Yeah. So we've seen a reasonably quick start here from Yuri. Land into Side Leopard, into Snapping Gnarlid. Just a hangerback, just a
as a 1/1.
Underrated hangerback walker for Pete as a 1/1. We see the attack in, we've triggered the landfall. We'll see if Pete wants to block. We'll see if Pete wants to. I mean, his hand means that he might have to. He's got some reasonably expensive spells. He's got Secure the Waste for next turn, and eventually working up to Planet Outburst on 5.
And the Wingmate Rock as well.
Yeah, so his hand looks pretty well set up if maybe he wasn't under quite as much pressure. But we're going to see Side Leopard, well, we deal 3 here, and then unless Yuri has a Titan Strength or that. We're just waiting on the deck list to come through to us, but we're reasonably sure we know what most of these players will be playing, just various sideboard options can sometimes be different. And we're going to see a Morph. That's quite a curve.
Yeah.
Power.
So this is actually what you want from the green-red deck typically. You just want to play creatures for the first 3 turns, and then on turn 4, your opponent either taps out to deal with you guys, or you or deal with a guy usually, because sweepers just don't get played very much anymore unless you're playing the Esper deck. And then you are left with one or two other creatures, and then you can go for the combo. Uh, in this case, Pete actually doesn't have any way to deal with the combo game one. So if Yuri decides to go for it, Pete is just dead.
Because they're also not on Dromoka's command
No.
as much as they're not. They're not a Bant Megamorph deck
Nope.
or a Green White Megamorph deck. They're not running either the playset or 3 Dromoka's command. So his interaction is Silk Wrap, Stasis Snare, and Quarantine Field if they're going up to that level of thing. It's just these individual pieces of interaction. But we see it past the turn there. Looks like there is actually a Stasis Field in hand already. Just hit as he flicks that through.
I see a Silk Wrap and a Quarantine Field. I think his plan here is actually to secure the wastes.
Okay. Secure the wastes for earlier. White X.
Yep.
Instant.
Yep.
Put X1/1s into play.
Correct. And it's quite good normally, except when the red-green player has Battle Rage Ferocious. Because the Ferocious gives trample, and your 1/1s do not do very much there.
Sorry. So Yuri, another fetch land. Obviously, one of the things all Pete wants to do right now is get to turn 5.
Yeah.
Where he has his planner outburst
Yes.
ready to go.
He's also got Quarantine Field, so if he can get rid of one of these guys, then his Quarantine Field could be for 2. But then that requires him to get to 6 mana, which is a tall order when he's on 13 and his opponent's got 3 creatures on the board.
And all of them have been pumped yet again by another fetch land.
Yeah. And the Den Protector's, if he chooses to flip the Den Protector, it's unblockable here as well.
Yeah, Den Protector has some really important rules texts in this format where you're trying to play with a lot of tokens. We see the Aberrant of Keral Keep.
It's interesting that he chose to play the fetch land before playing the Keral Keep there. Because he could have flipped the fetch land off the Keral Keep and he would potentially lose a card.
And fetch land's more important in this landfall deck than, say, in your Ataka red deck. We can see Team of Battle Rage has been the reveal. Currently, that Snapping Eyelid is a 4/4. So it does activate the Team of Battle Rage. So that is 8 points of, theoretically, 8 points of damage.
Yep.
Or he can choose to it on something else and still get the Ferocious because of that. Let's see where Pete will choose to go with this.
So he needs to have a Stasis Snare.
No,
he does have a Stasis Snare there.
He's got 2 in fact at the moment.
So that's pretty much ideal for him actually. But
so get rid of the
guy. Whatever he targets with the Battle Rage, and then he could chump. He probably has to chump here because he's on 13, taking 4. So what is likely to happen is he'll probably block the Nalid, and then try and bait Yuri into pumping the Nalid because that gets more damage through, and then in doing so he actually kind of gets rid of the most threatening threat. At the same time, he could also just do it to the Den Protector because then it gets rid of a card as well. So there's a lot of lines here that's quite difficult to work out as Pete is trying to mull over how he's going to deal with the Battle Rage.
Was that no blocks? Or is he still trying to understand what the card does? He's
Yeah.
reading it. It is a card that sometimes people hear about it. It's this mythical combo card that no one actually realises until it gets done to you, and you're like, that actually does it exactly what that card does. Because you used to see it in the heroic decks, one type of heroic deck from the last standard, but it's started to really make its way into this format currently. So we're going to see the Thopter, as you said, Tom, blocking on the Nalid. Try and save the most amount of damage. Force Yuri into using this Team of Battle Rage. No, we're just going to take the damage.
Yuri saw that he's probably playing around the Stasis Snare, so he's basically gone, well, you're trying to trick me into doing this, I'm going to go, no, I'm okay. I'm going to keep up the Den Protector, and then next turn I can flip the Den Protector and have a 3/2 unblockable.
And the 3/2 unblockable is very important at the moment, and he does still have the Team of Battle Rage that he can get back.
Yes.
So it's not, no, it's in exile, but he's got more fetch lands in his graveyard, which he can still leverage that advantage.
I think that is the line he is going to go for. He's going to try and return another fetch land so that the next turn his team is still big.
Yes, obviously so. Healing his hand, feeling he might have to use one of these Stasis Snares, get the card off the table. Going after the Snapping Nalid, get that off the table. Yuri's like,
sure.
Can't really deal with that pre-combat. Untap, draw. We see Nissa Vastwood Seer.
I'm actually surprised he didn't try to Stasis Snare in combat there. I'm not sure what Pete was afraid of.
Well, if he acts first, then the Team of Battle Rage can be used.
That is true, yes.
And it does 2 more damage, so then he's down to 5. Maybe it might have been a good play from Yuri to actually force him
Well, he knows he has. Well, he's on 7, so he would have been on 5. So yeah, it is quite risky to do so. But he would have forced Yuri to use the mana. Then he can get rid of the Den Protector.
Yeah, and he could have.
But then he would be dead.
Yeah, he could. One of the things he could do is he could actually target the Den Protector with the Stasis Snare.
Yeah.
Because then either Yuri has to save the Den Protector and get the value out of it, or target the Snapping Gnarlid with the Battle Rage. And maybe Pete was a little bit hesitant to use his life total, so
Battle Rage would have been putting him down to 4 though, because that's 3 additional points of damage.
So he would have been down to 4,
which is with such a board presence, it's very hard to fight through. I mean, he's pretty much up against it here already.
If Yuri doesn't flip the Den, sorry, right now the Secure the Waste looks really good.
Yeah, it does.
We're going to see a Monastery Swift Spear.
Although he can still respond to this Secure the Wastes.
Yep. So
if Pete goes for a Secure the Waste for 3 here, then Yuri can just respond to that, flip the Den Protector, which is then becomes unblockable.
I think Pete might be slightly priced into doing the Secure the Waste right now because there's a lot of damage on the other side of the table, and he is only at 7.
He probably has to do it and accept the fact that he will lose to another Battle Rage, or become immense on the Den Protector.
Of course, at the moment, he would also lose to Titan Strength.
Titan Strength
because he has to crack a fetch land, puts himself down to 6. The Den Protector then does 6 points of unblockable damage.
Yes, that is correct.
And depends obviously how many cards Yuri has in hand, but Yuri's played a lot of cards, so he might be down to only 1 or 2 left.
It looks like he's only got 1 or 2 left here. It's actually interesting with that fetch land because Pete probably does want to crack this, but it's also aware of the fact that he is going to be dead to even a Tarka's command here would put him on lethal. So,
but I mean, at what point do you, at one point in this game, do you just sort of have to go shrug your shoulders and go, if he has it, he has it. I have to try and play. I have to try and give myself the best out of getting to the next turn.
I think in general, when you're playing against the red decks, when you're in this sort of situation whereby you're so far behind, you have to just take the riskier lines. And he does go for the fetch because he does need to get the secure for as much as possible.
He needs to be able to block 3 creatures.
Yes.
He'll probably let the probably the Swift Spear through.
If Yuri lets him block, then he probably blocks the Den Protector here.
Yeah. And you're probably going to let Swift Spear through. It's the least amount of damage.
Yes.
So obviously it can't be pumped by landfall.
There's also the potential to just block the Abbot because it will kill it if Yuri doesn't have a spell, and if Yuri has a spell, you are just dead because every spell in Yuri's deck does 3 damage at this point.
So if he's allowed to block the Den Protector, that will be like a small victory because he only takes 5 from a Titan Strength off of the Swift Spear.
Yes.
So we'll have to see what happens. So he's going to cast the Secure the Waste. Yuri's that's fine. So they're in.
Is Yuri going to let him move to blocks?
Doesn't let him move to blocks. Yeah,
seems like
because if he moves to blocks, he's able to. I don't know.
Okay, he's going to respond by morphing the Den Protector.
Obviously, that's 3 points of damage.
Yes, and
we
he's
see
get back
many lands.
His graveyard is just lands, but that's okay because they're pump spells.
Yep. And we're now going to see blocks on everything, and this Planar Outburst looks like Pete's best out right now.
Yeah, but he is still on 3, which means that Yuri just needs to draw an Atarka's command, and that will close the game out.
Yeah. But Pete at this point giving himself the most amount of time to dig himself out of this situation. Obviously, you can't block the Den Protector.
No.
It's bigger than your warrior, Pete, so you're going to have to block something else.
He might choose not to block the Swift Spear here, but with the Outburst as his out, I think he just wants to save as much damage as possible. Because if he doesn't draw the land here for the Outburst, he is just gone.
And Yuri didn't have anything.
No. So the block on the Abbot was a good block there for him.
Now we just have to see if he has the land, and it doesn't seem like he actually has that 5th land, unfortunately, for Pete.
He's had an awkward draw because he drew the Nissa after turn 3, whereas ideally what he wanted to do was go hang her back into Nissa. The Nissa acts as a roadblock, gets him another land. But in this situation here, the Nissa is just not enough because the Den Protector is unblockable here. And he does have a Silk Wrap, I think. So he can block one of the creatures and have a Silk Wrap for the Den Protector.
He needs to cross many fingers and many toes on this turn. As his Silk Wrap take care of the Den Protector, he needs to hope that Yuri has literally nothing in hand to get through.
He wants Yuri to draw another land here, probably. Awkwardly for the land.
Abbot of Kerrol Keep off the top.
Yes. That gives him another draw step.
So spin that wheel again, so we see the Abbot.
Trigger.
Reveal a Den Protector. Ooh, unfortunately.
It
Yuri's
doesn't
going to
quite
play
do
it and
enough
he's going to
here.
get fairly...
Yeah, blown
Well,
out by
maybe
the...
no. We might have been wrong. Pete doesn't actually seem to have the planar outburst. It was a stasis snare. Was the second was the other card that we thought
Okay.
it was? But
So Yuri's still in a good position here, though. Then, because without the planar outburst, it's very difficult to see how Pete's going to get rid of 3 creatures here. He
Mhm.
needs to get rid of.
you see another land there. So that side leopard is now lethal. So Nis is going to have to do a bit of chomp blocking.
So he's going to chomp block the Scythe Leopards.
Make
taking
Yuri.
one.
Well, he's got to make Yuri crack the fetch land, but
Yeah.
the Den Protector is still exiled. That one will be able to be played still.
Yeah.
Can't get rid of that one yet.
Be interesting to see whether Yuri plays it for a morph or as a 2-1, depending on what his last card is. I don't know what his last card is, but he's going to play it as a morph.
There isn't really anything there, but there is an Abbot, which is, as we say, a redraw
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes. So, Pete, what is your deck going to do for you today?
Another
Oh,
Gideon.
that's not going to get you there, I don't think.
No. So, okay. So we're seeing basically green-red landfall doing what green-red landfall does, which is winning game 1s because most decks don't have the main deck slots to play the hate cards that they would have for it in the sideboard. And we're going to go to game 2 here, and we're going to have a look at the sideboards as we get the deck lists. So, for
We found them now, so we can now actually discuss
out
what's
what
in
they
their
are.
deck.
yeah,
I mean, Yuri's is a fairly standard deck. He is Den Protect, Snapping Gnarlid, Abbot of Carol Keep. There's one Zergo, there's only one, then the 4 ofs, Ataka Command, Become Immense, Titan Strength, and Team of Battle Raid. He does also have 1 Evolving Wilds.
one Evolving Wild.
Losing a forest for an Evolving Wilds, it's technically
quite
another
some
fetch
spice.
land.
I mean, it is a. So we were talking about Retreat to Emeria pumping your whole team for +1/+1. So with that card, any fetch land becomes +2/+2. With Yuri's deck, a good portion of it has landfall. So basically, he is playing intrinsically built-in Retreat to Emerias on his creatures, and Evolving Wilds may seem odd in an aggro deck because you don't want your lands to come in and play tapped. But if you treat it as like another spell almost, it seems fine.
The upside of having it in the deck is greater than the downside.
Yes, and because the deck plays like a combo deck, you don't necessarily need to have the turn 1 plays. You'd like to have them, but you don't need to have them.
Yeah.
And
So-
obviously, it doesn't have to be your first land drop either.
So in terms of the sideboard, then obviously Yuri playing a fairly standard sideboard in 3 Arc Lightning, 3 Outpost Siege, 2 Wild Slash, 2 Roasts, 3 Raining Volleys, a Sarkhan the Dragon Speaker, and Usover Dragon Claw. Now, Sarkhan the Dragon Speaker stands out as a good one. It's evasive flyer. The Bant deck can't, without the Wingmate Rocks, struggles to block flyers. Maybe the Wild Slashes to try and get through the early spell. Like, we know he has Elvish Visionary, Nissavas would Seer,
Yep.
Hangaback Walker. And if you can kill a Hangaback Walker straight away, means your guys they can't chump block twice.
Yes.
Outpost Siege might be a bit too slow.
I think so. I think Outpost Siege is pretty much just for the decks where you have they force you to play the long game. So things like Esper Control or Abzan. Those are the matchups where you want the Outpost Siege. In this scenario, Bat Tokens actually has a very quick clock. If you don't do anything, they can bury you under in about 2 turns. So you need to be careful with playing cards like Outpost Siege. You just give them too much time to do their thing.
So you like staying on the slightly smaller plan, maybe taking out some pieces of the combo because your opponent has so many Silk Wrap effects, Stasis Snares, Quarantine Fields.
Yes, definitely. Especially if it's playing against a white deck, you have to expect that they're going to board in Surge of Righteousness, which lowers the impact of your combo. Although you can still just put it on a green creature and they can't do very much about that.
Yeah, it's always the nice payoff of playing red-green is you can use the green landfall creatures to assist you in going through your opponent's board. And Surge of Righteousness, is it in there?
Yes. Pete's deck list is actually a very stock list from the Pro Tour itself. And talking of Surge of Righteousness, it plays 4 copies of it
Wow, that is a lot of hate for red. He does not want to lose to red decks. 4 Silk Wraps, 4 Surge of Righteousness.
Well, we saw in that game, the red deck is very quick, and despite having a lot of early plays, his early plays don't actually act as much more than chump blockers. Your 1/1 Elvish Visionary isn't going to trade with the Scythe Leopard, and it's not going to trade with a Monastery Swiftspear, so it is just a roadblock. So you need something to get rid of these creatures, because if you don't get rid of the creatures, as you saw in that game there, Yuri builds up a board and it can go wide as well as tall, which is then you put in a situation where you can't deal with both and you lose to one of them. So
one of the very interesting things as well, looking at this deck, is because he's on banned tokens, he doesn't have any Deathmish Raptors or the Den Protector engine, and this, as you're saying, the stuff he blocks with is not very efficient. Whereas you can put a Deathmish Raptor into play, it blocks everything Yuri's doing, and they have to have the parts of the combo to really go over the top of it because of Death Touch. And it feels that because Pete Ward's playing so much smaller 1/1s, 2/2s very early on, he might be losing out slightly to the landfall deck. That means he has to obviously make up with the 4 Surge of Righteousness. Maybe he brings in the Negate, maybe he brings in the Den Protectors. There isn't really much else that he's really wanting to bring in at the moment.
his full sideboard is 2 Evolutionary Leaps, which it's not the right matchup for it. It's just too slow. It's not going to achieve anything. You got 3 Den Protectors, which you can board in, but you're not really expecting to play it as a morph. You are going to play it as a 2/1 to try and trade, but it's still not great. 4 Surges, which is obviously great. 2 Valorous Stance, potentially, if you are fearing the combo, it can stop them comboing you. So as I said in game 1, Pete has very limited ways to deal with the combo. So it's just the 2 Stasis Snares that he runs. So that ups it to 4 copies of things that can stop the combo. And then the rest of the sideboard is 1 Oblivion Sower, which costs 6.
You should be dead by then.
You're either dead or so far in control that you don't want to cast this spell. And then 1 Negate, potentially again to ward yourself against the combo. And 2 Erases. I think that's just as a
bit of a mirror
matches.
attack.
And potentially against Esper tokens.
Yeah, it's one of the interesting things with Erase is it's started to see a bit more play again.
Yeah.
Because the Silk Wrap is almost the #1 removal spell currently going around. And we see Yuri taking a quick mulligan down to 6. Obviously not happy with his opener. And I think one of the things that's interesting with Pisek, he's running the full 4 Retreat to Emeria. Feels like some of them might be coming out. Is a bit slow.
Yeah, certainly in this matchup, he doesn't need the full 4. He wants to basically trim the curve as much as possible. He would probably have to still keep some in there because it is the centerpiece to the deck, if you will. But the fact that it doesn't actually generate anything until turn 5 is a problem. And we see Yuri with the turn 1 Scythe Leopard there. Just what you want to see.
Hangerback Walker for 1.
Yeah.
This deck being much better on the play than on the draw.
Definitely. Like with the green-red landfall deck, when you're the opponent of the red-green landfall deck, you really want to be on the play because it means that you can set up before they can get going.
And you also get to then activate your Hangerback Walker.
Yeah.
Double Scythe Leopard. No fetch land, interestingly enough.
He did have he used the fetch land turn 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. He might just be holding on to his fetch lands because he knows that he's going to have double leopard, so he can get more value out of it.
And double leopard is pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, Wild Knuckletal was playable in Modern, right?
Yeah, it was all banned in Modern at one point, I hear, as well.
Yeah.
So good cards are good.
Yeah, I mean, if you can play Wild Knuckletal in Standard, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, so we see, unfortunately for Pete, he seems to be having a bit of a land-heavy draw. And then we see the Evolving Wilds.
Yeah.
It has made its appearance. So that's one trigger. He seems to be on 4 lands Secure the Waste for Pete.
So it doesn't seem terrible for Pete because he can buy a lot of time with the cards he has in hand. The problem is he's not really buying time into much because all of his removal is 1/1 except for the single copy of Planar Outburst. So if Yuri keeps developing his board and gets too far ahead in the board, then his only out becomes a Planar Outburst. So Pete elects to just take the 6 here, and I guess he's trying to get his hanger back to a point where it becomes a wall, or at the very least gets enough tokens that it's worth his while to trade it off.
Yeah, and it's able to trade with one of the creatures that Yuri's playing.
Yes.
Seems like Yuri passes the turn back. We're going to see the Hangerback Walker activate in the end step, up to 2 counters, untap, and on to Pete's turn. See if he can find a spell off the top. Well, that was a Den Protector. So
well,
if you're going to find one that's pretty good.
Yeah. The problem is he doesn't have anything in his bin. So he's gonna have to play. He's gonna have to play it as just a Grey Ogre or just as a 2/1 to chump, I guess. Because you got to expect that the Leopard are going to be at least 2/2s, potentially 3/3s.
The other way he can go about it is play the Den Protector now. Cross your fingers, Yuri doesn't misspell, but it allows you to then use the Hangback Walker to block, pump to 3, sacrifice that, next turn unflip, replay Hangback Walker.
I actually quite like that line. That seems like a optimal play for him. It means that he gets to use a Hangback Walker for more tokens, and he should be able to trade for a Scythe Leopard. And he uses his mana as well, so the other line that I was considering was that perhaps he can just secure the wastes here and then next turn play the Den Protector, because he wants to get value out of this Den Protector, and the only spell he has other than the Walker on the table is secure the wastes.
No, we're going to see the Den Protector.
Yeah.
So he decides he wants to get something going. Yuri, but interestingly, doesn't have a burn spell, fortunately. That would be what Pete was probably crossing his fingers going, please don't have a removal spell.
Yes. The green-red landfall deck doesn't actually play many burn spells, despite being a red deck. I think it's none in the main deck. And
all the slashes are in the board.
Yeah.
It's changed quite a bit from, I believe, the deck from the Prototyl, because the deck of the Prototyl had some fiery impulses.
Yeah.
So we see Yuri there firing off his his Titan Strength in the upkeep, so it allows him to scry before his draw step.
Possibly looking for a fetch land and/or a Battle Rage.
Yeah.
Although he can't cast Battle Rage here. His mana's very awkward here. He elected to search for another forest with his Evolving Wilds, which is interesting because the deck shouldn't really need more than 1 green mana a turn. So perhaps he has double Become Immense, but then he still can't cast them.
Just as he appears, we find the mountain there. So it's going to be interesting, Pete. Does he want to trade off the Hangerback, get some extra blockers, and then rebar the Hangerback next turn? Depends obviously on what he draws. So
I think
we're going to block.
Yeah, it's a good trade for him because it also gives him 3 blockers.
So we're going to see the Team of Battle Rage gives double strike. So
double strike and trample because of the Titan Strength.
Yep. Can't forget the fact that the Titan Strength is +3/+1.
So it's
5 power.
5 power double striking right now. And how many cards does Yuri have in the bin? Because he has the 1 green open.
I think he only has 4 in the graveyard. He has the 2 lands, the Titan Strength, and the Team of Battle Rage. So this is going to be putting Pete down to 3 life.
That's not a healthy life total at all.
No.
Even like Pete hasn't actually done anything horrendously wrong in the matchup in terms of drawing the right cards in the right order. He's made a 2-drop, he's made a 3-drop, but he's still on a single-digit life total on the play as well.
Yeah, this landfall deck doesn't take long to kill. This is why things like Surge of Righteousness, Soak Crap is so important, because Yuri's only played 2 creatures.
Yes, and it's actually one of the weaknesses of the green-red landfall decks is that if you do draw multiple removal spells, they do kind of start becoming a little bit anemic because they're playing so many spells which are pump spells. They're not burn spells like the old mono red decks where like you deal with the creatures and now you're going to deal with Stoke the Flames or Lightning Strike. You're dealing with Battle Rage and Become Immense, which are great with creatures, but they're not doing anything unless they have something to go on.
So Yuri's draw for the turn. It's 5 mana open from Pete. Obviously looks like he might be being able to secure the way to the next step. So we're going to see Monastery Swift Spear, and a passing of the turn.
I think this is interesting because passing the turn here lets Pete have a turn where he doesn't have to worry about dying. So he can cast a Secure the Waste here and make more blockers, or he can just flip the Den Protector, return the Hanger back, and now he's got 6 points of damage on the table, which is all unblockable.
Yeah, and he can still secure for 2 as well.
Yes. Well, he can secure for...
Well, if he decides to flip the Den Protector, can still secure for 2. Allows him to do something, and we can see his hand's still full of lands. He seems to have drawn lands. He's drawn... so far in this game, he has drawn 3 spells.
He's worried about the Wild Slash here, because he's got a fetch land, and he's on 3 life. And his hand is still full of other fetches. But I can't see him not trying to get the 5th land here.
And especially... Sorry, carry on.
His opponent doesn't have red mana open, so he's not immediately dead, but he doesn't have any incidental life gain in the deck either. So
No, and like you say, 2 and 3 are very different numbers.
yes,
But they're against Yuri, it might be completely the same number.
yeah,
Atark's command will still get you either way. But Wild Slash, Yuri didn't have the Wild Slash before, and that morph is quite a target for
yes.
a Wild Slash if he'd been able to find it. So we see.
I think that's why he has elected to go for it, because he probably realised that he would have had Den Protector Wild Slashed earlier if there was one in Yuri's hand, and certainly Yuri probably wouldn't have tapped his mana in the way he has.
So we see the secure for 4.
Yep.
Draw for the turn. We've seen Nissa Vaswood Seer.
That's quite a good draw here, because so he wanted a spell. He's on 5 lands now. He doesn't want to play his fetch lands because he doesn't want to keep losing more life. Although 2 and 1 is probably the same thing. It just means that he can swarm you. But having this here, he can flip it the turn after, which then gets him to keep getting out of this flood that he's in.
So we see Nissa Vaswood Seer into play. Trigger, search a library for a basic forest, and the important thing is it is basic. We shall pull it up on screen for those of you at home who aren't so sure what it is, what Nissa Vaswood Seer does. And then we also have... you're gonna have to I can't remember what the flip side is. This is going to challenge...
Sage's Animus.
Oh, Sage Animus, there we go. We'll get there in the end, there we go. So we have found them. So Nissa Vaswood Seer, 2 and a green, 2/2 elf, legendary elf scout. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic forest. You can't fetch any of the dual lands, not Knight of the White Orchid. You're not able to fetch any of the dual lands.
No.
Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if you can store 7 or more lands, then you may turn Nissa.
So she flips into the her Planeswalker side.
Which is the Sage Animist.
Yeah. And so the Sage Animist is basically, usually what you do is you make a 4/4. But in this deck, the plus is so good because, as I said earlier, all your lands are potentially spells as well. Oh, and Yuri's just drawn and cast as Sarkhan.
Oh no!
So
we're going to see this into the hand.
That's the game.
Pete tapped out, attacked with all his Opta tokens. Unfortunately, wasn't able to play around the top of Yuri's deck, and Yuri able to clear up 2 games to 0 against banned tokens. When we say banned, we mean green, blue, and white. The shard from Alara, and well, it was always going to happen. Green Red Landfall was always going to eventually win on camera.
Yes.
And it's finally picked up its first win on the camera. So we're going to bring it back to the booth. Tom Law, John Partridge. Commiserations to Pete. Very not the most pleasant loss to take.
No.
Especially to 2 side leopards.
Yeah, I think the matchup is very difficult for ban tokens because it's not playing the removal suite that we see in a lot of the other decks. So when you're playing green white Megamorph, for example, which is the same colors essentially, because the blue in ban tokens is just for dispels and disdainful strokes. But you're not playing Death Mist Raptors, as you mentioned earlier, which is a very good blocker. And it's not playing Dromoka's Command, which can get rid of creatures and buy you more time. And it's like your creatures just aren't very big, so it's always going to be an uphill battle. And Yuri did draw fairly well there, I think, compared to our previous.
He lands and spells in
the right
order.
Yeah.
The other games they were a little bit flooded.
Yeah. And in Yuri's case, even when he was flooded, he had 2 landfall guys on the table, and the way he flooded was with fetches, which means that they're all +2/+2.
Yeah, and that's the powerful thing. Instead of having, say, Den Protector and Monstrous Swift Spirit, it was Side Leopard, Snapping Gnarlid.
Yeah.
All of those are affected by flooding.
Yes.
Which is a good thing for the deck.
Exactly.
You don't ever want to flood, but if you are, you want to have it with some landfall creatures in play. That concludes round number 3 of coverage here from the preliminary Pro Tour qualifier. The regional was yesterday. We are now on back to the preliminaries today.
Yep.
Around 80 players walked in. 1 will eventually leave as title of champion of the preliminary Pro Tour qualifier for Darkster in London on this day in November. We're going to take a quick break, go and get some lunch. It has just arrived, and I believe it is that time of the day.
Smells good.
I imagine Tom and myself will be back in for the next round, and then we'll swap out. Shay will come back in, probably do it with you again, Tom. I think you might be in for a few rounds, because as you say, you might not be here for the top 8, and me and Shay will have to see it down the stretch.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for watching. That concludes round 3 of coverage. Hopefully you will join us for round 4 very shortly. We shall see you soon.